Welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of music that moves our hearts and gets our feet tapping. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. We appreciate you for listening. Share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. The podcast is hosted by 12 Kyle. Next up, the Rap Soul Podcast.
Welcome to another edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. I am your host, 12 Kyle. If you found this episode from a passing car that was playing it on their stereo system, welcome and thank you. If you found this episode from notes from a trapper keeper, welcome and thank you. If you found this episode from your fortune cookie, welcome and thank you. This is the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. This is the best music podcast that you've never heard until right now. Again, welcome to the Rap Soul Podcast. On this episode, what I want to ask is a simple question. What was the soul music that you grew up on? And I came to this because I was reminiscing about the soul music that I grew up on. As maybe some of you know, but probably most of you don't know, growing up in my house, we listened to a lot of music. I mentioned on previous episodes that my parents had an extensive record collection and music got played a lot in my house. And it was a sign of the times because as a kid who was born in 1972, a lot of the music that I grew up on was, soul music. And a lot of the music that I heard throughout my house definitely influenced my love for music and my love for these particular artists. So what I wanted to talk about on this particular episode was just a few of the artists that in the music that they produced that I grew up on. Now, I'm not going to do an album review or anything like that, but I'm going to touch on briefly some of the artists. And I've got about 4 or 5 artists that produced some great music and the music was played in my household. And again, I think what separates my generation and this particular time where I grew up was that the music was played in my house, literally. Now, the difference is between the house that I grew up in and the house where I'm raising my children is that the music in this house more than often gets played in the ears, doesn't get played out loud. So like in 77, when my mom and dad played records, they literally played the records on a turntable and the music permeated throughout the house. And that was a great thing because a lot of times in my house, you would wake up to music. And depending on the mood of my parents, you may go to sleep listening to music. But music was a constant thing in my house. And I feel very fortunate because a lot of the music that I heard back as a child influenced me and made me love music as much as I do now. And so over a period of time, obviously technology changed everything. So wherein my house that I grew up in, we heard a lot of music because of the records that my parents purchased, because of the albums that they played, and just their overall influence on our musical ears, it made a difference. Wherein I know that I've made a difference musically in my children's lives. But again, a lot of the music that they heard or heard me play, and they'll tell you, primarily came in the car. We didn't really play a lot of music in the house. We did, but we didn't. And I mean, it was CDs. And then eventually, as time progressed, the music moved from the CD to the cell phone. And once it got to the cell phone, I mean, like, it was a wrap. And it became music that got played on the cell phone and then subsequently in the ears. And then as the kids got older, you know, they got music. And when they got music, their music went into their phones. And once it went into their phones, they listened to it in their headphones and then subsequently AirPods now. So the life or the musical lives that I lived and my younger brother lived, my kids won't live or haven't lived, probably won't ever live, because even right now, if I wanted to play music in my house, I couldn't, because I don't have anything to play it on. I have CDs and no CD player. I mean, I guess I could play it in, you know, my computer, I guess, maybe an old computer. But nonetheless, I just wanted to kind of reflect and talk about some of the music that I grew up on. And subsequently, I want to know from you. I really want to get your feedback on this particular episode. I want you to tell me, what's the soul music that you grew up on? Because depending on how and where you grew up, there's going to be differences, but I'd like to hear it, because I think that is what makes our musical experience what it is. So I got 5 artists here that produce great soul music that I grew up on. And again, these are in no particular order, but I just want to talk about them briefly. This music was very, very important and very special to me. First up, and again, these are in no particular order. Number 1, Marvin Gaye. Listen, Marvin Gaye, I distinctly remember we had quite a few of his albums. We had the What's Going On album, Midnight Love. What else did we have? We had Hear My Dear and I Want You. Now, the What's Going On album came out in 1971. That album is arguably one of the greatest R&B soul music albums of all time. It is so influential in so many ways. And that's not why I loved it. I loved it because my parents played the hell out of it. I mean, like, Marvin got a lot of play in our crib. And my favorite song on that album was, and still is, Makes Me Want to Holler. Probably my favorite. That may be my favorite Marvin Gaye song, period. But I just remember as a child, and again, this album came out in 71. I was born in 72, but I just remember as a probably 5 or 6 year old playing that album in my house, and actually requesting it from my parents for them to play it. But it got a lot of burn in my house, a lot of burn. But Marvin Gaye was the guy, man. I mean, silky soul singer. That's who he was. And you just didn't understand how smooth and how dope he was at that age, because tragically Marvin Gaye was murdered by his father, actually on April Fool's Day, which is probably one of the reasons why I still don't believe in April Fool's jokes, because I remember people telling me that Marvin Gaye had been killed by his dad. And I was like, that's a terrible April Fool's joke. You're not going to get me. But yeah, I want to say Marvin Gaye, his influence was incredible. And I don't know necessarily, it really probably wasn't until he died that I realized how much loved he was. Because again, I was young. And I think Marvin died in 82, I think. Either 82 or 84. I can't remember. Maybe I'll look it up before we get out of here. But that Midnight Love album that came out in 82, I think Sexual Healing's on that one. Hear My Dear, and I Want You. That album came out in 76. Now, I Want You, the song, that's probably, I take that back. I Want You is probably my favorite Marvin Gaye song. One of the things that I love about I Want You is that Marvin plays this song and the band or whomever's created this album, or excuse me, this song in particular. The song I Want You comes on, and it literally plays for like a minute and 16 seconds before you even hear him start singing. And while I knew that was something different just by my ear, because normally you're only going to get a few bars in, and then the person's going to start singing. Marvin Gaye literally makes you wait for like 85 bars before he starts singing on I Want You. And it's such a beautiful song. And yeah, that's probably my favorite Marvin Gaye song of all time. But yeah, it is still dope to this day, and I love that album. That album got a lot of play in my house as well. Number 2, again, these are in no particular order. Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder is my favorite artist of all time. He is probably my second biggest musical influence. And I know that may come as a surprise to some of you, because you guys know me as being a huge hip hop head. But before there was hip hop, it was Stevie Wonder for me. Stevie Wonder's the greatest, man. I mean, I love Stevie. And what's interesting is I can't even tell you when the last time Stevie Wonder made an album, because it doesn't matter. He's made so many dope albums up until that point, to where I think, without looking it up, I think Stevie's last album he made was like in the 90s or something. He's Stevie, man. He don't have to make no music. He can literally, his discography is crazy. What albums did we have? We had Inner Visions. And Inner Visions, I think, came out in 73. Songs in the Key of Life. That was 76. We had the Stevie Wonder's original music Aquarium, which had a dope, it was like a greatest hits album, but it was like 4 different albums, and the album covers folded in and out like a book. Man, incredible. I love that album. And then Hotter Than July, that came out in 1980. Songs in the Key of Life. Wow. Songs in the Key of Life arguably is you could put that up there right with What's Going On as one of the greatest one of the greatest R&B albums of all time. One of the greatest soul albums of all time. But yeah, Songs in the Key of Life definitely has my favorite Stevie Wonder song, and that's As. And I still don't know why he titled it As, because it could have been Always or something else. But I get it. I mean, it's just Stevie. That album, still cold to this day. Still listen to it from front to back. No skips. It's a classic, and I don't use that a lot, but it's a 5-mic album. But ironically, my favorite Stevie Wonder album is 1980's Hotter Than July. This is the album I probably played the most in my house. Because by the time 1980 rolls around, I'm 7, turning 8. And at this time, I can actually play the records myself. Like, it got to a point where Mom and Dad felt comfortable enough to let me, young 12 Kyle, get the records and put them on, and nobody was scratching back then. At least I wasn't. But you didn't want to scratch or damage the record, because records were expensive back then. At least it appeared. Plus, we didn't have a lot of money. So but yeah, the Hotter Than July album, to this day, man, I love that album. Like I said, it's probably the album that got played the most. The most interesting thing about, or at least one of the most interesting things about the Hotter Than July album, was the Happy Birthday song. Happy Birthday, the song is dedicated to Martin Luther King Jr., who at the time they were trying to get a national holiday in his honor. Supposed to be the third Monday of January. And there were states that were, balking at it. Nobody wanted to acknowledge it. But Stevie Wonder created this song and created this campaign. And this was the theme song to the campaign to get Stevie Wonder's birthday be recognized as a national holiday. Excuse me, not Stevie Wonder, Marvin. Damn. And I'm not drinking. Martin Luther King's birthday. Sorry, y'all. But what's ironic about this song is that, like, people sing the Stevie version of Happy Birthday at people's birthday parties. And that has nothing to do with anything. Like, the song is dedicated to Martin Luther King. It's really not supposed to be sung at Lil Ray Ray's birthday party. But we do it. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, that album, phenomenal. What else? Album number 3. Earth, Wind, and Fire. Man, listen, we had Earth, Wind, and Fire got a lot of play in my house. A lot of play. The one album that I can remember that we had was That's the Way of the World. And that came out in 75. That got a lot of play. It got a lot of play. And I don't know if I don't necessarily know if I have a favorite Earth, Wind, and Fire song. I will say this much. The one song on that album, I think, that really was overkilled, and I did say killed, was Reasons. Reasons gets played a lot, but if you actually listen to the words to Reasons, you probably wouldn't play it. And here's the thing. Reasons gets played a lot at wedding receptions. But if you actually listen to the words, the song isn't about, falling in love or anything like that. Listen to it when you get a chance. It's a very dope song, but I think over a period of time, people have misinterpreted it and misconstrued it to something that it's not. But I tell you what, we got time. Let's take a quick commercial break. And on the other side, I'll give you 2 more artists, and then we'll wrap the show up. Just sit tight. We'll be back in just a second. Are you feeling nostalgic for the golden eras of rap and soul music? If so, tune in to the Rap Soul Podcast. We are your weekly journey through the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, spotlighting the music and the hidden gems that shaped the soundtrack of our lives. From the powerful beats to the soulful melodies, we bring you the best of the past with fresh insights and stories. Rediscover the music that defined a generation. Subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast and enjoy the vibes. And just like that, we are back. Once again, it's your boy 12 Kyle. This is the Rap Soul Podcast. It's the intersection of rap and soul music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. And on this episode, we're talking about the soul music that you grew up on. But right now, I'm telling you about the soul music that I grew up on, but I want to hear from you. Before the break, I gave you 3 artists that I really grew up on, jamming to their music: Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. The next 2, if you know me, if you know, right? They're the staples. Let's start with one, the only king of pop, Michael Joseph Jackson. My MJ got a lot of play. We had Jackson 5 records. We had some of Mike's solo albums. The 2 that stand out the most to me that I listened to was 1979's Off the Wall, and of course 1982's Thriller. If you've been following my other podcast, the 12 Kyle podcast, you know that I've talked about Thriller as well as Off the Wall. Did a versus between the 2. But we're not talking about that on this episode. Off the Wall. And shout out to the homie Britt from the I Can Talk About This All Day podcast. Britt makes a good point. Like, she said that Off the Wall was the last great disco album. And it wasn't until she said it that I really thought about, like, yo, you know what? She might be right. Like, it's disco all day, but it's so cold. My favorite song on that album is I Can't Help It. Super duper love song. And I didn't even really, being that young, you know, I'm like, what, 7? I don't know about love songs. I just know if songs are dope. And I Can't Help It was a cold ass song. And then obviously Thriller. Listen, there's really not much you can say about Thriller that hasn't been said. What I will tell you is that everybody and their mama had Thriller. Everybody. I don't know one person at this juncture of life that didn't have that album. In fact, I will go out on a limb and say, no, everybody's had this album. Like, nobody has not had this album. Even if you don't physically have the album, you got it in your Spotify. You know, so Thriller is just one of those albums. It's one of those joints that we'll always know and always remember how we felt when we heard it. Some of us will remember where we were when we bought it. It just depends. But yeah, Thrillers is still a cold album. It does not compare to some others, but I mean, these are the albums that we purchased and they got a lot of play in my house. Now, obviously, me being a Michael Jackson fan, I listen to more than just these 2 albums, but I'm talking specifically the albums that I grew up on. So all of these albums that I'm talking about and these artists that I'm talking about are taking me back to a childhood. My adolescence and my young adult ages were different, and obviously I listened to different music and still listen to this music as well. But I wanted to just stay, like, when I say grow up on that childhood, those childhood memories, that first introduction to you musically. And then the next guy is obviously none other than Prince Rogers Nelson. Well, let's see. We had the Prince album. We had Controversy. And we had, did we have 1999. We had 1999. And obviously we had Purple Rain. Let's see. The Prince album had I Want to Be Your Lover on it. And that's still a jam. And he leads off the song with my favorite saying, I ain't got no money. I say that to my kids all the time. Every time they come, Dad, can I get, I ain't got no money. Yeah, so that's my thing. Controversy, another dope album that came out in 81. And then 1999 came out in 1982. And then the ever-present Purple Rain, 1984. Purple Rain, what was interesting about that album, and I mentioned it on previous podcasts, is worth repeating. That was the first album that I actually got for myself. So listen, from the time, so for as far back as I can remember, like I said, my mom and dad had records and they had records, and then, you know, but they would let me, as I turned to like maybe 8 or 9, they allowed me to play the records, because all before then they would play the records. I'd just sit there and listen with them. But by the time Purple Rain comes out, and it's 84, so I'm 11, about to turn 12. This is the first album they actually bought for me. And the first I got the 45, right? The 45 had on one side, it had When Doves Cry. And on the B side, the flip side, was a song called 17 Days. That, my friends, is my favorite Prince song of all time. And there's no song even close to that. And it's not that it's his best song. it's just my favorite because I played that song every single day. You got to remember, I have a 45 now. This is my first record. So they started me off slow with a 45. I get the 45 and I got the 45 for a while. So every day I'm playing When Doves Cry, I flip it over 17 days. And then after a while, I just stopped flipping it. It was just 17 days. And I would play 17 days over and over and over again. And then subsequently, maybe a couple of months later, my mom bought me the Purple Rain album. And listen, I was hooked. And that album still means a lot to me. It still resonates with me. And it's an album I still listen to often, like at least a couple of times a month. One, because it's a dope album, and two, it's a very short listen. I think the album may be like 36, 37 minutes long. It's not a long album at all. And obviously, I got a chance to go to the movies because I'm such a huge Prince fan at this point. Went to the movies to see Purple Rain. Shout out to Apollonia, purifying herself in Lake Minnetonka. And I've been to Lake Minnetonka before. I don't necessarily know if you want to jump in there, but depending on the time of the year, I'll put it like that. But Lake Minnetonka is a very beautiful lake. Shout out to the twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Minnesota is a beautiful place in the spring and summer. You don't want to mess with it in the wintertime, but I actually lived there for a year, and it was really dope. But yeah, I'm a huge Prince fan. Prince is Stevie Wonder is probably my second biggest musical influence. Prince is the first. I wanted to play guitar like Prince. In fact, I even took a few guitar lessons as a kid. But I quit because guitar practice was on Saturdays and I wasn't with it. But yeah, it's those albums really, really resonate with you, and they really stick to you. And it's such a great memory of, how I grew up and what I grew up on. And in conclusion, when I look back on the soul music that I grew up on, I feel fortunate. I feel fortunate because most of the music that I listened to was age appropriate. Maybe not sexual healing, but it was age appropriate. Let me take that back. He did sing Do Me Baby. I think that was on the Controversy album. So yeah, I mean, but other than that, it was age appropriate. The music was good, and it was music that you really wanted to listen to repeatedly. Like, there was no such thing as, okay, I'll listen to this song and then I'll walk away. No, you listen to the whole album. So you put Songs in the Key of Life on, and you would play it from start to finish, right? And then when you're done, you play it again. And then when you're done, you play it again. Like, it was a continuous cycle. That's just how music was. At least that's how it was in my house. And subsequently, all of those days of listening to music like that, all of those days of being exposed to the music that we had, all of those days of being around good music, particularly feel-good music, I think all of that helped make me the music fan that I am today. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for my parents who still are musical people. Although they, would subsequently divorce, but one of the greatest things that they did, I think, as parents was introduce me to music. And music has been a constant in my life. As evident of this podcast, it is something that I truly, truly am passionate about. You can ask me what I ate for lunch yesterday, and I probably couldn't tell you. But I can tell you about how many bars Marvin Gaye waited before he started singing on I Want You. And, I remember these artists, and I remember how they made me feel. And, there's also a level of sadness, too, when you think about the fact that Mike's gone, Prince is gone, Marvin Gaye is gone. A couple of guys from Earth, Wind & Fire are gone. At some point, Stevie's gonna go, and these are pieces of your childhood. But I want Stevie to be here forever. Let me just be clear. But nonetheless, I mean, like, it's this is what we grew up on. This is the soul music that is been etched into my soul. And one of the things that I love about it is that I can always press play and tap back into it. And if I mention anything on this podcast that you have not heard, do yourself a favor. Please, ma'am, please, sir, go listen to it. You will thank me later. That is going to do it for me. Thanks again for checking out this edition of the Rap Soul Podcast. Please do me a favor. Give me some feedback. If you listen to this episode, let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. You can follow me there on social media at Rap Soul Podcast, at 12Kyle. Give me your feedback. Tell me 5 artists that you that have soul music that you grew up on. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. You can subscribe there. If you haven't done so already, on the YouTube channel, we have both audio and visual of each and every one of our episodes as well. So hit the like, hit the subscribe button as well, and share it with a friend. Like I said, we're on social media, Twitter X, Instagram, Facebook, IG, Threads, all of that. We're there. So make sure that you subscribe. We'd love to continue this conversation. We have a Reddit page. Go to reddit.com/the Rap Soul Podcast. You can continue the conversation there as well. If you'd like to make a financial contribution to the not the 12 Kyle podcast, but the Rap Soul Podcast. If you'd like to make a financial, I knew I was going to do that at some point. If you'd like to make a financial contribution, you can hit us up on Cash App, $TWELVEKYLE. Again, this is the Rap Soul Podcast. This is the intersection of rap and soul music, hip hop and R&B music from the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. This is the best music podcast that you've heard. That's going to do it for me. I am your boy 12 Kyle. I'll catch you guys next time. 5 G's. Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This concludes the episode. Be sure to subscribe to the Rap Soul Podcast. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the podcast on social media. And feel free to continue this discussion on our Reddit page. More importantly, share this podcast with a friend or family member who loves music as much as you do. Until next time, 5,000.